Congratulations, you just found the best place to get advice to improve your IELTS speaking score. This lesson's advice, vocabulary, and grammar will focus on an IELTS Task 2 and 3 topic to make sure you get a higher score on your next IELTS test. Hi, I'm Adam, and I was an IELTS examiner for writing and speaking for over 10 years. There are a lot of so-called IELTS experts out there, but if they don't have the badge, then they weren't an IELTS examiner. So let me help you improve your score. And if you want to check out more videos, check the links below. And if you'd like me to check your speaking score, also please check the link below. All right, let's get started. Let's have a look at today's topic in more detail. Now for this topic, you have to be thinking about times in the past. And it could be a song, it could be a poem, it could be a speech. It doesn't just have to be, a poem or a song. So keep your mind open. It's just anything that you had to memorize and do in front of other people. It could even be a presentation. And just make sure you focus on, where, who, and what you had to say or sing. That's where you can focus a little bit more of your time. 2 minutes is hard to fill. So if you focus on what you had to say or sing, you can use 30 seconds, even a minute on this area. And of course, how you felt about it. Here are some expressions in grammar that would work well for this question. Number 1. For where you were? Well, I'll never forget the time I had to, perform a speech or perform a song in front of others. I was at school, I was in my office, maybe studying or working. I memorized, this poem at my home, and then I had to perform it or sing it, maybe at a concert hall or in an auditorium. So those are some expressions you can use there. Again, guys, you don't need to follow exactly what I'm saying. I'm just trying to give you some ideas for a good introduction. Number 2. Now, for who was listening to you? Well, I had to perform this poem in the presence of maybe classmates or peers. There must have been around 200 people, or just give a number. Some of them were my friends and others were maybe strangers. Number 3. I had to say or sing, this poem. It was very important to me because, and give you a reason, go into a lot of detail, of why it was important for you. And this is also where you can, like I said before, you can spend a lot of your speaking time talking about what exactly it was you were talking about. So you can actually use your time here to talk about the topic or the song. Number 4. And explain how you felt. Well, this song or this poem made me feel, maybe stressed or excited. On the one hand, preparing was really, easy or difficult. Again, use your own style. While I was preparing, I felt, nervous or stressed. Once I was finished, I felt energized or I felt excited because I'd been preparing for so long, and once I'd finished and succeeded, I felt great. To make sure you get a band 7 or higher, you need to use some idiomatic language. Let's have a look at a few now that would be good for this topic. Number 1. The first idiom is to have butterflies. I had a lot of butterflies in my stomach when I had to perform my speech in front of all of my classmates. My stomach didn't feel good at all. So again, to have butterflies just means to feel nervous. You could use this for any topic to show that you're feeling nervous. Number 2. To burn the candle at both ends. I was burning the candle at both ends for a few days. It took a lot of time and energy to prepare, so I didn't get a lot of sleep. Again, this is a good expression for here, but you could use this in many topics to talk about staying up late, not getting enough sleep, and being very busy. Number 3. Next, we have to learn something by heart. I had to learn this entire song by heart because it looks very unprofessional to have the words for a song in front of you. It's not like this was a singing room. So this is me trying to be a little bit funny. But again, to learn something by heart, a great expression, you can use it in this topic, or you can use it for any topic where you're talking about memorizing something. Now it's my turn to show you what a task 2 answer should look like. The most memorable time I can remember having to memorize something by heart and then perform it in front of other people would definitely be when I was in grade 3 at primary school. At that time there was a speech contest and all of the students had to perform a speech first in front of their class, and then certain students were selected, and then we went to a community center and we were judged in front of like lots of parents and other adults. So it was quite a stressful time. Round 1 was in front of peers and people in my classroom, so I definitely had some butterflies in my stomach then, but I was super nervous when I had to perform this in front of like about, I'd say 150 people. And again, I was 3 years old. It was a speech about a camping, or like a trip to a cottage, as we would say in Canada, where I'd done some fishing, and it was just really difficult to do, but it was also very exciting. It was when I learned, performing in front of other people, it does make you very nervous, but it is kind of like a free adrenaline. And even though you're nervous, it's still exciting. So it was kind of like a good experience, because at that time I learned that overcoming kind of fears and, just doing something in front of a group of people while being still nervous does give you a sense of accomplishment, because it's much different than speaking, one-to-one in front of someone or a small group of people. When there's lots of people watching you, wow, it really does make you feel extremely nervous. Now comes the most important part of the test, the part 3. Now there are a list of questions, but the examiner will change his or her questions depending on your answer. So if you have a speaking partner, don't just ask the questions. Make sure you ask how, why, or please explain more about something. Also, if you're starting with these questions, this means the examiner thinks you're a band 6 or lower. And this is the questions that he or she should start with. Number 1. Now the first part, 3 topic, what do you think, why do you think it's true that most young children enjoy learning songs and poems? You could talk about, you could focus on songs here. In my experience, songs are more popular. You could say things like the rhythm of a song makes a child interesting. Often songs are very playful and funny, so kids love them. And when they love something, they want to learn it more. And this isn't something that we should just focus on in children. This is something we should focus on for everybody. When you make something enjoyable, people want to learn it more. Number 2. Do you think it's easier to remember the words to something as a child and more difficult when we become adults? This would seem true, especially around 10 to 12. Our brains are much more able to remember new information. And when we get older, just like our bodies, we start to slow down. Now, I think people exaggerate this, or I do think older people use this as an excuse to maybe not try and learn something, or to make an excuse for them not being able to remember something. It's not like it's a huge difference, but definitely we do have more ability to remember things when we're younger. But I don't think the gap is as big as people think. I think just when you're a child, you have lots of energy, you want to learn new things. And as adults, we're busy and we kind of get lazy and stuck in our ways, so we don't try to learn new things. Number 3. Do you think learning songs and poems is a waste of time? Absolutely not. We need to improve our memories, and especially if we enjoy it or it's meaningful to us, it's absolutely very important. I was just thinking the other day that, it's interesting that if you take an acting class or a drama class, people might say, oh, why are you doing that? You're not that handsome or pretty. You're not going to be an actor. But we never say that when kids play sports. We don't say, oh, you're not going to be a professional football player. Why are you learning how to play football? It's beneficial to our overall life. Football makes us stronger and work in a team. Being an actor or memorizing things makes us better presenters. It allows us to remember information more easily, so it's absolutely useful. And now it's time for the second group of questions. If you start here, the examiner thinks you are a 6.5 or higher. Good job. Number 4. How practical is it for younger students to learn facts about the world, for example, dates in history? Now, on this topic, my personal feeling is that it's not that useful. It's more important to get the overall message for a story, but I think too many schools are worried about having scores to show to parents. And the easiest way for a teacher to show a score is to have a ABC, a multiple choice question. Do you remember this date? But it actually makes kids kind of hate history. It just makes them kind of robotic learners or rote learners. So this absolutely, I'm against this. If people want to learn this as they get older, or if it's useful, then yeah. But generally, history is to learn about our stories from our past, not the exact specific dates. Number 5. Are there any techniques that school children can use to remember new information more easily? Well, yeah. As I was talking about earlier, you could make it more fun. Kids really latch on to something when it's fun. And a lot of people will talk about technology and they'll talk about smartphones or iPads, but I think these actually don't help us much. They help us get information, right? But it doesn't really help us to remember. So making something fun, making it meaningful, and using their own techniques to remember, not just like following the teacher. So there are some techniques, but again, I don't think technology gives us a better memory. Number 6. How important do you think it is to teach young students to find and check information for themselves? I think this is absolutely important. There's so much false information on the internet, and kids are on there from a younger and younger age, and it's part of this misinformation that's going around. So parents and teachers, and especially teachers, they can show which sites, they could give them examples of, okay, do you think this is a true story? Do you think this is a true story? And why not? And kids will get a sense for what is real and what is not, and they can fact check, and this will help them in their future research, and it'll help them in life to form better ideas if they can more easily trust what they find online. Now we move on to the final group of questions. If you get these on your IELTS speaking test, this definitely means the examiner thinks you are a 6.5 or higher. Congratulations. Number 7. Well, let's move on to talk about the value of knowledge. Do you think it's a good idea to use public money for funding museums? Well, I absolutely do think it's a good idea. Maybe not too much, but definitely when you have museums, you're kind of curating or collecting your culture's history. And it can make people feel proud and they can learn about it. When something's visual and you can go there and make a day of it, it's a great learning experience, and it's more meaningful than just reading about it in a book. Number 8. Do you think it is true that each generation must depend on the knowledge passed on from the previous generations? Well, absolutely. It was Newton who said that, I stand on the shoulders of giants. Again, we give ourselves too much credit nowadays that, we did all this, but it was the hard work of people a long time before us that does give us the chance to develop our current information. Even if you think about something like farming, the fact that we were able to improve farming techniques means we need fewer farmers. That's more people that can do jobs that require, thinking, This is a big step for society, and we should even have a lot of respect for them and the trials and tribulations and difficulties they went through so that we could get here. Number 9. Which would benefit a society more? More people with a broad general knowledge or more people with specialized knowledge? I think it's hard to say, because I think it's a little bit of both. I think we need to have, to be more creative, I think we need to have broader knowledge. So people who need to make decisions at the top, they definitely need a broad knowledge, because having knowledge in different areas gives them more perspective, it allows them to think of different things, and it allows for a lot more creativity. However, we also do need a lot of people with specialized knowledge, because there are a lot of jobs where someone needs to be very good at one thing. I just think if we focus on specialized knowledge too much, we don't appreciate what other people do, or we can't appreciate new ideas as much. We just get too focused on one thing. Check out the video over here if you would like to do a real IELTS speaking test with me. I will act like the examiner. And thank you very much for liking, subscribing, and commenting. This really helps me out a lot. And I wish you the best of luck.